and welcome to another episode of Good Look. I have a friend here with me today, Kim Gifford, and we're going to be co-hosting this one with a joint project. We're going to be using a very similar transfer process to the one that I showed you before, where we were transferring images onto tiles and then also onto wooden postcards. Today we're going to be transferring onto metal, and Kim and I have joined forces because she teaches a writer's workshop, and so we thought that transferring images of journal fragments onto metal would be the way to go.
Yeah, so when I saw these for the first time, you can see that they look very much like crumpled pieces of paper that you'd have if you were working on a project and you get frustrated, as many writers do, and you just crumple up and discard them. The lovely thing about these is that you turn something that you would have otherwise seen as imperfect into a work of art. So that was why when I first saw these, I was really drawn to doing this with Tina and also with my writing students, and thought that what's great about it is you can work on a piece of writing, and just like we said, it could be something that you're willing to discard, or you might have something at home in a journal. I had a friend who brought in a piece of Facebook post. So she had little messages from Facebook that she brought in and just jotted down on the piece of paper and used that to transfer. So it can really be as perfect or as imperfect as you really want. I mean, it can be something that you really want to treasure that's precious, or something that we really want to transform that started out not so precious.
Absolutely, and I love the idea that imperfection then becomes significant, and moving forward with it or from it. I love the idea of making a progression that is founded on imperfections, flaws, afterthoughts, and then milestones.
Which is what all writing really is, because I think that that's what a lot of beginner writers fear, is that it has to be perfect.
Right.
And it's really a process, and we all learn in school to hate revision, and revision's really part of the whole writing process. So to me, that really illustrates it with a physical, beautiful piece of art.
Well, and it's very similar, I think, probably with all art forms, and certainly with painting. A white canvas is terrifying to me, so starting with a flawed piece is actually helpful, because it can only get better from there.
Exactly. And so one of the things I wanted to be able to introduce to this from the writing perspective is sort of starting to generate some of that material. So again, it can be as flawed, or as you might like the first piece you do. So I introduced some of the writing prompts that we do in class that people can still do at home. So you might have something already in your journal, but you might want to generate something new. So I brought in one that we do a lot with my writing students. A lot of times, because I teach memoir, people are looking to do a timeline and get the events in their life down, and that can be okay, but I don't think it's necessarily the most interesting way to go about it. So I don't remember where I borrowed this exercise from. It's from a writing teacher in a book, and I can't place it right now, but what I like about it is that instead of a chronological timeline, we're looking at creating a pinnacle or peak experience that you've been in your life. So you basically start by, and I don't know how the camera can see any of this, but anyway, you draw a triangle, a mountaintop, and that's where you are now, or where you were at a very critical point in your life, and then draw an S-curve, or a river, we would refer to it, leading up to the mountain, and at every stage of those curves, you can mark an event that led you to where you are now. So, if it was the birth of your daughter, it could be meeting the husband, and then getting married, and
or divorcing
him, and then being a single mom. It can be whatever you really want it to be, but you mark those events down, and then you choose one of those to just start writing about. And like I said, that's just getting those images, those memories, those things on the page, and they can come out as scattered as you want to begin with. That's what's great, because we're putting them on here, and but you're preserving them, so you have them down there, and so it works as both a writing exercise and as generating the first step of this material. I brought in for my little exercise, which was this piece that we produced here, just a list of my favorite words. So I had things like perpetual, deranged, I think that says a lot about me, right? Redemption, revelation, ocean, pug, plethora, anointing, azure, dissipate, story, and just a list of words that then we transferred onto this.
Plethora. That's one of my favorite words.
Yeah, and so again, that's not something that we'd think of necessarily as a grand piece of writing, But for this purpose and as a starting point, a launching point for exercises, because you can then turn these into a piece of writing, it really works.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'll let you start talking about the process a little bit, and we'll come back to those words later.
Okay, well, this is the simplest of all of these so far. And in materials that we're using, just this one medium. It's water-based, it's polyacrylic, polyacrylic, the various different ways that the manufacturers describe it, all means pretty much the same thing. This is a brand that does work, so I guess I'm going to plug it, but there are others. And I have been using this 6x9 sheet of aluminum from, or where I come from, it's aluminium. So what I like about this piece is that it's pliable. It's not, doesn't crinkle up like the aluminum foil in your kitchen, but it does mold easily, so you don't end up shredding your fingers, and you can continue to change it until it's exactly the way you want it. So we are going to jump right in. What I have done is prepared a piece that is already finished, and I also have put a piece on the other side. This is now ready to remove, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do that first. When I teach this class, that is the way that I do it. It's instant gratification, and the mystery of discovery comes at the beginning of the class. So we pre-prepare, and then once you know what you're going for, we put another piece together.
I think you're right when you said that, like the mystery of discovery. I mean, it's really satisfying to start that way.
It is.
You know, you see right away what you're going to get.
And we're going to do that right now. So this is basically a piece like this.
Yeah, so again, I don't know if the camera can see this, but the color in this, it was still on aluminum. The color came from the page. So this actually was a version of this.
Yeah.
So you can get the different colors, but you also have used different metals in the past.
I have, and you can use any metal. It happens that this piece of copper is a little more difficult to mold, and it's a little bit more expensive. So I tend to teach with aluminum, and I like its paper-like quality. So, and these are laser prints. Do not use an inkjet printer.
Yeah.
Laser printers rule for this process. So I have taken a piece, and for the life of me, I can't quite remember what the image was. So I too will be amazed.
That's the fun of it.
So I'm just going to moisten this sponge. You want the thing saturated, not slurping all over the place.
So from a writing perspective, what's really fun about this is if you've used words instead of an image, as the words emerge, you can jot them down, and we can use those to generate a new piece, which is always fun because I think writers, again, not wanting to use the empty page, and you can keep working to make new creations. So we're going to see how this works.
Well, here we go. This is teamwork here because I'm uncovering them, and Kim is going to jot them down.
All right, what do we got here? LED light. Whoa. Okay. Dog out.
Solstice.
Solstice.
No.
Is it? Or solitude? I can't tell.
Solitude.
Solitude. Okay.
All right, we're going to keep going here. Is there a limit to number of words?
No, we can keep doing it, and you don't have to be creating something. I mean, we're kind of trying to do it on the spot, but these can be saved for later. It could be a writing exercise if people do morning pages, or you're working, you know, this is fun to do as a group.
It is.
It's fun to do maybe with your kids. So it's a great exercise you could do with anyone, and you can do these during the process or later on after you've done the transfer.
It's kind of a fun discipline, too, to just have these randomly discovered words as the basis for a new piece.
This is a really pretty piece, too. It's got different colors on it. So, juice, is it? Some juice?
Footage, enjoy, dark, campers and a dog.
Campers, there we go.
So this piece, yeah, we've got some text, and we have a little sketch, which is I love that when journal pages have doodles and sketches and things on them as well, and so of course it all transfers the same.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I know some people have used computer-generated script, but it's really neat to see people's handwriting, I think. But you can do both. I mean, get a font that you really like and do it that way.
Important thing to remember when you produce your print, your laser print, is to flip it so that it's a mirror image.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to get print as a mirror image. I actually like this combination of what you're doing because it is, you don't have time to think too much, too hard. You kind of just have to run with it.
What I think is so neat is that you don't have to think of yourself as an artist or a writer to do this, and yet there's such a feeling of accomplishment afterwards that you really created and produced something.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how many artists and writers actually think of themselves that way. Anyway.
But I know that people who aren't really think that there is that image out there.
That's
so
right.
many
That's
beginning
true.
students that come to my classes think, you'll hear them, you know, I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer, and I can't do this, and anybody can do this.
I hear that too. I hear the one I hear the most is I can't draw a straight line. And I'm like, why would you want to? There's no straight lines here. And my life has not been as linear.
So I'm coming up with something, and I don't know how good it is here, but that's the thing, it doesn't have to be good.
Okay,
but
so now that the image is revealed, let us pair it with your piece.
thing. So, and it's going to be kind of different from that, right? That's the thing that's neat. It's not this isn't a straight line either. So
No, this was just a springboard, right?
Right. So we had LED light, enjoy, dog out, solitude, some juice are the words that I wrote down. So I have, in the solitude of the night, cradled in the dark, exhausted, I think of all I enjoy, but there's no energy. Who wants to stand in the glare of LED lights, work 9 to 5? Who wants to crawl into the world? What I need is some juice to get up out of this tent of lethargy and let the dog out. So there we go.
I love it. I love it.
But I mean, it's really fun, you know,
Yeah.
and it is kind of fun to put the time constraint on yourself, to see what you come up, and there's no stopping because those words are still there to use later if you want
Right.
something more polished, but
Absolutely.
it's really fun.
And what you'll find as this thing dries, it's just damp at the moment, but as it dries, you'll start to see little cloudy areas where the paper's not quite fully pulled up. And at this point, your fingertips are your best tool because you can feel with your fingers what you cannot feel with a sponge. So there is a little bit more work to do on this one. But we're pretty close. You can also use a damp paper towel. You can use a regular towel. This is not a regular towel. This is microfiber, which works really well for this. I don't love how it feels on the fingertips, but it
works well on the transfer.
It does a good job, yeah. And I did these 3 pieces, and I kind of, well, it wasn't all that deliberate, but I'm going to claim that it was deliberate now. I wanted different levels of crumpledness, and a sense of being retrieved and smoothing it out again.
Well, that's what really works good if you do have more than one, or you go through the process, because perhaps your first piece is the more crumpled, and then maybe when you have something that you feel is a little bit more polished that you'd like people to be able to pick up and maybe read a little bit better, see it a little bit better, you can keep it folded out. But it's really, you know, part of it too is also how bendable and how much you want to play with this, because you can keep giving birth to it the more you play with it. It takes on new forms and new shapes. So
That's right.
I really love to keep mine crumpled because the whole impetus to me was that crumpled piece of paper. So I didn't want to straighten this first one out, but I have another one that I think eventually I will.
Well, and also this doesn't have to stay
Right,
this
you
way.
can-
I can continue, you know, I can come back to it in 6 months and decide to re-crumple it. So this is ready for its final seal. The final seal is the same stuff that we did the transfer with, which is great. I love it when you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. Good idea to give it a quick stir. I wouldn't shake it, partly because, well, the lid could go flying off. Also because you end up generating bubbles in there.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So a little bit of a stir. We'll pop that in there. And this stuff dries really quickly, which is great. So this final thing is really just to protect your work. Use nice, long, easy, light strokes. Make sure you've covered everything. You can go this way. You can go whatever way you like, but I tend to go several directions and then end up doing this longer stroke.
And I think, again, I mean, it is fun, and it is, like we're saying, an experiment, and it's a way to combine words with art. But I do think that it's really important for people to generate and feel confident that they can do it. Like, to me, it's just exciting that you can really create something that's three-dimensional, that's art, that's written all in one fell swoop.
Absolutely. And if there are little areas that you kind of wish you hadn't included, you can just sand them off.
You know, and one of the things I did here was just use the words that you gave me in the context of trying to produce something really quickly. But the other thing is if you're trying to do something like a memoir prompt and it's about a specific person or event, you can really try to apply those words to that experience.
Right.
So again, having a child, and those words might not at first seem like they worked, and you don't have to use all the words, but you know, I think art is a great way of kind of finding a side door into memory. I think it's Abigail Thomas that talks about finding a side door into memory, but oftentimes, again, it's not just the blank page, but it's really dealing with the frustrations of memory when we're trying to write memoir, because you don't remember things clearly, and sometimes just a word or a phrase or an image can open up that. So I love with my students to try to get them to do more than just write. And that was another reason why I was so, you know, excited when I met you and saw this, is that it's all helping do that. You want to use other art forms. Music's a great source, but something like this, it just can open up those side doors, get into the memory, get juices flowing that wouldn't be otherwise. So.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. And then take you forward to the next place, which sometimes it's hard to plan where that next place is. So it's good to have these. It's like a sort of stimulus.
And it's like a physical representation afterwards of the process, right? So like we actually saw that we have something to show that we did this. And oftentimes that's the hard part about artists and writers. I mean, you're sitting there and it can be endless hours of just...
It's all in your head.
Working on this. Yeah, it's all your head. This is great because we come out and I mean, maybe it's not the most perfect thing, but it shows we did something.
But it is, Kim. It is perfectly imperfect.
That's right. It's nice because it works for all ages too, right? I mean, a kid can do this, and an elderly person can do it. I mean, it doesn't have any restrictions. So.
Or somebody who's both.
That's true.
All right, we are there. So I am now.
Yay, the moment, the crumple.
I'm going to crumple. So I'm thinking I'd like to show some of that image. So I'm going to do most of my crumpling with this as the underside.
Oh, we didn't sand any of the edges.
We didn't. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
So that's.
And this is optional, but I do like to sand some edges.
I think it's great on the corners, especially.
Corners are fun. It's already starting to erode. I do like these sanding sponges because. You get a little bit more, you can be more purposeful and directed with what you're sanding, and it's your decision rather than the sandpaper's decision. So let's see if I can do this without wrecking. A little bit of a mess, but it's not too bad. I'm going to make an edge here. I'm going to hold it right on the edge, not too far over because it will bend, of course. And I'm just going to add to the erosion.
This would be fun too, I think, with if people have memorabilia from like their grandparents or their.
Well, this piece is actually. I pulled this from a diary that I found. I did an online search. This is a war diary. This is from the First World War.
Oh, wow.
Check out some of the images. I mean, I'm sorry, some of the words. Bolsheviks.
Oh, gosh, yeah. No bread.
No bread.
No bread. No
And
white
then-
bread.
No white bread, and then, which of course would have been the thing then. No, we have no bread again in the house. They are killing us.
They're killing us. Wow. Wow.
People are dying of hunger. So
Wow.
that's pretty, and that
Powerful.
was for real, yeah. Okay, so we are.
You're ready for your favorite part.
I'm ready for my favorite part, yes. Fast forwarding through this.
But like
I
this
can
would be a
get to it.
great one to do what you're talking about with erasing some of the words, if that was going to be the front and center piece.
It
Because there's so much text there. So I think that that would really add to the visual image as well as creating a new piece of writing if you took out some of those.
Absolutely.
But since that's going to be the inside, probably it will do it all on its own just from the bending and the folding.
Now we do generate a little bit of kind of gray aluminum dust, which does wash off. And I'm going to just work it back and forth a little.
It's a little bit more challenging than people might think. I mean, it's malleable, but it takes a little bit of force.
Well, it's not paper,
Right.
but what I'm enjoying is making it look like it is.
But like you said, having a little bit of a plan for what you want to
Yeah.
show is helpful in terms of where you want to hold it and bend
Yeah.
it. And like you said, there's no mistake because you can go back. But
Right.
do you think having, like when I first did it, I was a little shocked that it was, it helped to have a plan because when you just start, it just takes its form and then sometimes it's a little hard to get
Yeah.
it back out. I do like this, how you're making it so the picture's kind of hidden too. So I do like a little bit of that.
So I quite like that this is extra crumpled and these other areas are less crumpled.
I mean, this time of year, it would be great with holiday cards, like the old antique-looking cards, and if you have the writing on one
Sure.
side and the picture on the other.
Yeah. There. I think
There you go.
we have a piece, which is, so in the lineup of wrinkledness, the progression, I think it probably belongs right there,
Yeah,
don't
we
you?
could put this one over there, right?
There we go.
Probably. Really. There we go.
All right. So I'm going to start here by preparing the surface. If you know your surface is clean, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't want to just go right onto that, nice and smooth and glossy. Me, I prefer it sanded, partly because I know then that there's nothing that's going to inhibit the transfer, but also because I like that
Antique look. Sort of.
distressed look. Yeah, yeah. So this is truly a great tool for sanding something that's uneven. And so this is going to take the really glossy shine off. I'm going to be able to get it into those most of those little dents and nooks and stuff, not all of them, which is, again, perfectly imperfect.
And I think that was interesting too, because what we discovered was the different qualities of the paper. So here
Yes.
you have one that's sort of a gray toned, and you have one that's sort of a copper toned. Really can add to the look of it.
Yes. Another note about the paper. Cheap is good.
Yeah.
You do not want any fancy smancy, paper with an uber finish on it, or just the cheapest paper you can get your hands on. And the reason for that is because any additive to the paper, anything that gives it that higher quality, is going to make it more difficult to remove, to transfer. I think it will actually transfer, but if you can't get the paper off,
Right.
or it takes the transfer with it, then that doesn't work. So here you can see that it's now got a sort of satiny finish to it, which I really like. And I'm going to take a dab of acetone. And this is where it's good not to wear nail polish. Say goodbye to that.
It's surprising what looked like clean still has a lot coming
Yeah.
off of it. That's, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really the aluminum dust that's coming off. So I'm now going to apply the medium. It's going to go on a little thicker than that top coat did.
I do find it a really kind of meditative experience and useful for me because a lot of times I can get bored really quickly or you want to get to the next step, but each step sort of reveals something like we were saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to me, there's enough kind of excitement to keep my interest going because that is a challenge for me sometimes with art is I want to get it done.
Well, I actually love the process, and I find that it puts me in a very good head space and a good heart space. And then actually I read something recently which proves what I've been experiencing all along. Don't you love when that happens?
Oh, yes.
Which is that 45 minutes of an artisanal activity, doesn't matter whether you think you're an artist or you don't. And it doesn't matter what the activity, what the actual thing is that you're making. Simply the process of creating something where there was nothing before brings down the cortisol levels in your brain. Those are the stress factors. And it becomes a soothing experience.
That's awesome. Something that's fun and healthy.
Yeah. So, oops, I'm going to drip on here. Handy towel. Okay, so I've got this side covered. I'm going to try not to get my fingers all over it. And I'm going to place it carefully onto the image. Now you have very little grace time for this. Maybe a second if you want to shift the position. But I'm going to recommend that you simply go with
Where it lands.
where it lands. Again, you do the best you can and then you run with it. You need to be ready immediately. I'm going to smooth it down. I'm going to flip it over and immediately, no wandering off here, you know, to answer the phone or get a cup of coffee. You want to immediately pick up your smoothing tool. I happen to have one in plastic today, but an old business card or a coupon or something like that, you just simply smooth out the wrinkles and the air bubbles. You're not burnishing. The transfer process will happen without you if you simply get it smoothed down, so you don't have to force it. Now I'm seeing some little corners where I think I could use some additional medium, so without actually moving the image, I'm just going to pull up the corners.
Yep. Got a little bit, a little more wrinkles.
So I flipped it over. It's secure on this side. And I've cleaned up whatever mess there was on here. This side's going to get its own transfer, so I just want to get any moisture off. I'm going to take a nice, sharp, fresh X-Acto blade, and I'm going to carefully trace the edge. I'm going to start a little on the other side of this corner, and I'm going to trace the edge, holding it at this kind of an angle. Go gently but firmly. You don't want the knife to jump. When that pulls off, we'll discard that. And we have our next piece. So this will be ready in an hour. If you pulled it up now, you'd probably see some of it beginning to transfer, but ideally wait till it's completely dry. And you can wait longer than that too. If you're busy and don't have time and want to do it later, that's fine. You can do it next week. The one that I pulled off earlier in the session, I think had been sitting there for several days.
So you could make several of these and leave them, and then when you have time to do it, go back to it.
Absolutely. So this is in process, and these are finished pieces. And then we have it. Thank you, and we look forward to the next session.